Do not let the artificial calm on the Islamabad negotiating table deceive your eyes. While the diplomats are still absorbed in weighing every single word of the peace draft, deep underground in the solid bunkers of Tehran, the war monster is not sleeping peacefully at all. It is being frantically fed with blood. The 2-week ceasefire is nothing more than a tattered velvet curtain covering up the most horrific rearmament in modern history. While the United States and Israel are confident that they have strangled the opponent's throat with the rain of fire last month, a steel bloodline from Russia, China, and North Korea has quietly risen through the traceless black market routes. Numberless shipments, military experts with fake passports, and a series of heavy toys are pouring into Iran at a dizzying speed. Tehran has no intention of kneeling. They are sharpening the blade again, preparing for a fiery second round, where destruction will no longer have limits. But is the gamble at Islamabad an honorable exit for a superpower? Or is it in reality a trap for Tehran to buy time while waiting for the gifts from the Far East? A series of long-range air defense systems, super-precise guided warheads, and cutting-edge technologies from Pyongyang have infiltrated Iranian territory through what means amid the thick sanction encirclement of the USA and Mossad. And most importantly, if the peace agreement is just a scrap of paper, then how will a total war, where all this black market arsenal simultaneously spews fire at the US-Israel alliance, turn the Middle East into a living hell? Dear viewers who are following Wider Meaning, before going into the commentary section, please like and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the sharpest analyses of global geopolitical developments. Part 1. The Black Market Weapons Storm and the Resurrection of Iran. Dear friends, in the world of supreme predators, a ceasefire is absolutely not the end of hatred, but only a beautiful term for the action of reloading and rearming. Right at this moment, while Western news agencies are still busy painting rosy reports about the efforts of diplomats in Islamabad, a brutal reality is quietly moving underground. A steel storm is sweeping through every corner of the black market. Goods are pouring into Tehran with an intensity never seen before in the history of the Middle East. Do not bring international law here as a shield. In a world where the right to survival is pushed onto the scales, every sanction or Washington-imposed resolution that reeks of imposition is nothing more than a mess of tangled words. Nothing more. Under the direction of the cold heads in Moscow and Beijing, a ghost logistics corridor has been established. Sections of trucks covered tightly with tarps slowly cross the Iraqi border. Heavy transport Il-76 aircraft land at remote Iranian military airports at 3 o'clock in the morning, and numberless ships are bustling into the port of Bandar Abbas. Do you know what is inside those shipments? It is not food or medicine. It is the latest generation S-400 air defense system, Russia's guardian gods that have the ability to deprive any F-35 of control of the sky. It is a series of core components of supersonic cruise missiles, weapons that the US ISIS defense system is still struggling to find a solution for. Russia is not only sending weapons, they are sending the soul of modern warfare to their Iranian ally. Moscow understands that keeping Tehran standing firm is the best way to break NATO's pincer in the Middle East. But this game is not only in Russia's colors. Look at those tiny electronic circuit boards, high-level military processors, bearing the mark of China's leading technology corporations. Beijing may still maintain a cold diplomatic face, but on the ground they are quietly turning Iran into a digital fortress. Electronic warfare devices capable of blinding enemy radar, satellite guidance systems integrated with Beidou into Iran's stealth UAV fleet are creating a fundamental change in technological level. This is no longer the Iran of previous decades, a nation that only knew how to compensate quantity for quality. With the blood transfusion from China, Tehran's missile forces now have accuracy measured in centimeters. Every ballistic missile now is not just a block of explosives flying aimlessly, but an assassin with an extremely sensitive electronic brain, capable of reaching right to the doorstep of high-ranking officials' residences in Tel Aviv. Iran's position at the Islamabad negotiating table today does not come from Donald Trump's kindness or Netanyahu's restraint. It comes from the power of the missile launchers that have just been completely replenished. Friends, look straight at reality. When your opponent holds in their hands the deadliest essences from the East, you no longer have the right to give orders. Iran's resurrection is happening at lightning speed under the protection of the giants. Iran is playing an all-in gamble. They use the Strait of Hormuz to lock the throat of the world economy, while using this black market arsenal as a steel shield to challenge the White House's authority. This is a direct insult to the intelligence systems of the CIA and Mossad. How can thousands of tons of military equipment slip through the thick sanction encirclement? The answer is very simple. When the enemies have linked together into a unified bloc, every barrier has gaps. Russia provides the muscle. China provides the brain, and Iran provides the suicidal will. The current calm is only a shell covering a horrifying preparation. Every hour that passes, Iran grows stronger. Every shipment that docks tilts the balance of power a little more toward Tehran. In the first round, Israel may have caused heavy damage to Iran's nuclear facilities. But the second round will be a completely different story. When the cornered one suddenly gets the most advanced weapons in hand, the hunter very easily becomes the prey. But if you think Russia and China are all that Iran has in hand, then you are too naive. In the Far East, there is a nation that never cares about international public opinion. A nation ready to send Tehran the craziest gifts to test its strength against the Americans. That is the ghost of Pyongyang. The link between Kim Jong-un and the Iranian Ayatollahs is deeper and more dangerous than any forecast from Western intelligence. Secrets about miniaturized nuclear warheads and intercontinental missiles are being transferred right during these ceasefire days. Part 2. Secrets from Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un's steel punch. Dear friends, do not only look at Moscow or Beijing and forget that in another corner of the world, there is a mad player who never knows fear. While the whole world is holding its breath watching Islamabad, between Tehran and Pyongyang, a real demonic axis has formed where the most prohibited weapons are being exchanged openly right under the nose of America's spy satellites. This is not diplomatic speculation. This is battlefield reality. Kim Jong-un's steel punch has arrived in the Middle East. Why can an Iran that just endured Israel's rain of missiles confidently declare itself ready to flatten Tel Aviv after just a few days of ceasefire? The answer lies in the mysterious transport flights taking off from Pyongyang, using the airspace of intermediary countries to land at remote bases of the IRGC. Inside those shipments is not ordinary technology but the soul of terror, intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. Technology and warheads capable of carrying destructive death. This relationship is not new, but in this year 2026, it has transformed into a life-and-death alliance. North Korea does not need oil. They need a real battlefield to test their beloved children against the most sophisticated defense systems of the United States and Israel. And Iran, with its oil money and burning hatred, is the most perfect laboratory. Missile lines like Iran's Karamshar 4 actually carry strong traces of movement from the legendary Hwasong series, but now it has been upgraded to a new level, with multi-channel GPS, maneuverable guidance capability, and especially a sophisticated decoy system capable of turning Iron Dome or Patriot batteries into useless toys. Washington and Tel Aviv are facing the most horrifying scenario. They are not only fighting Iran, but fighting the entire killing knowledge of Pyongyang that has been forged through decades of confrontation with America. North Korean missile experts, people who can live on potatoes but can build ICBMs, are present in Tehran's underground bunkers. They did not come to visit. They came to readjust the sights for the Ayatollahs, to ensure that in the second round, every missile leaving the launcher will be a death sentence for the target. America's superior position is shaking violently because of the stubbornness of this alliance. Donald Trump may threaten. J.D. Vance may apply pressure at the negotiating table. But how can you threaten someone like Kim Jong-un who has nothing left to lose? And when this tricky guy joins hands with a bloodthirsty Iran, a cutting-edge technology transfer has taken place. Leaked intelligence reports show that components for miniaturizing nuclear warheads and hypersonic missile technology have begun flowing into Iran through uncontrollable black market routes. This is exactly the steel punch that Tehran is hiding behind its back. They are not negotiating to seek peace. They are negotiating to wait for the final shipments from North Korea to complete the assembly. Once the mobile launchers are fully loaded with the gifts from Pyongyang, Iran will no longer need to bargain. They will give orders. You are witnessing an insult to the world order that America painstakingly built. The sanctions orders now look like paper barriers in front of a steel flood. When North Korea provides missile technology, Russia provides air defense systems, and China provides the electronic brain, Iran has turned into a military Frankenstein monster, an entity possessing the total power of the entire Eastern Bloc, right in the center of the world's oil pocket. The price of delay at the negotiating table is precisely the security of Israel. Every minute the delegations argue over wording in Islamabad is 1 minute a North Korean missile component is installed on a launcher aimed straight at Tel Aviv. Israel is standing on a time bomb whose fuse is in the hands of an Ayatollah in Tehran and a commander in Pyongyang. But do not rush to conclude that this war is only about missiles and bombs, because when the arsenal is full, Iran still has another card. a formation that can collapse the entire Western economy without spending a single intercontinental bullet. It is a fire serpent formation that is being laid out on strategic sea areas. America may be confident with its powerful carrier fleets, but do they dare confront a pack of UAV wolves and coastal missiles equipped with the latest top-secret guidance technology that has just arrived? Part 3. Iran's Fire Serpent Formation and Total Warfare Tactics at Sea. Naval warfare is not only the game of trillion-dollar carrier fleets showing off power. In this Gulf region, Iran does not play by Washington's rules. They are laying out a formation called the Fire Serpent, a giant fire snake crawling along more than 2,000 kilometers of strategic coastline, ready to crush any steel block that dares to approach. With the military equipment just frantically pumped through black market routes from Russia and China during the ceasefire days, Tehran has turned this entire inland sea area into a true dead zone. Do not mistake the current silence for submission. Iran is implementing a superior asymmetric total warfare tactic. Do you know why America still has to keep a safe distance beyond 500 nautical miles? Because the Fire Serpent is not just a name, it is an integrated network of tens of thousands of supersonic anti-ship missiles and swarms of suicide UAVs, lying in ambush in the mountain-piercing caves along the coast. Thanks to the supply of high-grade electronic components and the new generation optical guidance systems that have just arrived, Iran's Shahed 238 UAV fleet and its stealth variants have been upgraded to a horrifying level. They no longer fly alone to serve as targets for the phalanx system. Now they attack according to the intelligent swarm mechanism, swarm intelligence. Imagine a real combat scenario, when 2,000 UAVs simultaneously rush out from underground bunkers, coordinated with hundreds of Abu Mahdi cruise missiles flying close to the sea surface. The most modern Aegis radar system in the world of America will fall into paralysis from overload when the computers cannot distinguish which is the real target and which is the electronic decoy provided by Russia. That is exactly when the Fire Serpent unleashes its deadly bite. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer can intercept 10, 20, or 50 targets. But what will it do in front of a steel storm consisting of thousands of cheap assassins ready to sacrifice themselves? The answer is very blunt. It will become a pile of burning scrap in the middle of the ocean. Washington's superior position at sea is being seriously challenged by the stubbornness and creativity of Iran. Iran understands that they do not need to build an aircraft carrier to confront America. They only need to turn the sea surface into a giant chessboard, and those pieces have just been sharpened by China's Beidou satellite guidance technology. With this support, the error margin of Iranian missiles has been reduced to the minimum. Now, every missile leaving the launcher from secret underground bunkers deep inland is no longer a random shot. It is a death sentence positioned with absolute coordinates aimed straight at the opponent's cockpit. But the Fire Serpent is not only on land or in the air, it also stretches its tentacles down to the bottom of the ocean. During the negotiations in Islamabad, Western intelligence missed an extremely important detail: the appearance of new-generation unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs, that are believed to have been shaped from Russian submarine technology. These shallow-water demons have the ability to lie still on the seabed for many months, without making any sound, without leaving any thermal trace. They are equipped with supercavitating Shkval torpedoes with horrifying speed, enough to tear open the belly of any oil tanker or warship passing through the Strait of Hormuz. This is exactly the noose that Tehran has already placed around the throat of the global economy. Iran does not need to defeat the entire U.S. Navy worldwide. They only need to lock the throat of Hormuz. Just one oil tanker being sunk here, and world oil prices will dance on the corpses of Western financial indices. That is the counter-punishment that Tehran reserves for Donald Trump. They use black market equipment to create a formation that forces America to choose. Either risk entering hell and then suffer a bitter defeat, or stand outside and watch Iran's Ryan revive thanks to rising oil prices. Iran's preparation during these ceasefire days has reached a frantic level. Military experts from Pyongyang and Moscow have been seen appearing at the coastal bases of the IRGC to calibrate electronic warfare systems. They are building a digital iron dome covering the entire Gulf region, where every communication signal of the U.S. fleet will be jammed as soon as the war breaks out. Iran is ready for a blind and deaf scenario for the opponent, when the Western guys cannot communicate, cannot position. Then even if they possess nuclear weapons, they are only a blind giant standing among a pack of hungry wolves. Looking at the arsenal that Iran now possesses after being blood transfused by Russia and China, it is clear that Tehran holds the upper hand in the terrain game. They are the host, they have the home advantage, and now they also have top technology. America is facing a completely different Iran, a military entity that has crystallized the most quintessential things of the Eastern Bloc to fight against Western domination. The Islamabad chessboard at this moment is only a pretext for the parties to observe who will lose patience first. While JD is still busy with diplomatic clauses, Iran's fire serpents have already been fully fueled. The coordinates of the U.S. Fifth Fleet have been loaded into the memory of the anti-ship missile batteries. Tehran has finished preparing for the second round. They do not beg for peace. They are waiting for a pretext to flip the chessboard. But will America and Israel really be checkmated so easily? Or is Washington hiding another trump card to break the fire serpent right from the egg? The situation is entering the most suffocating phase when new findings from Mossad about Iran's secret nuclear arsenal have just been released. Part 4. The Islamabad chessboard. America and Israel are being checkmated. Dear friends, at Islamabad, the atmosphere is not the easing of peace, but the suffocation of a battle of wits. And there, America's superpower position is being challenged by Tehran's stubbornness to the point of madness. Do you think Washington holds the upper hand? At this negotiating table, Iran does not appear as a defeated party coming to sign a surrender document. They come as a counterweight holding trump cards, powerful enough to collapse Donald Trump's entire game. Vice President J.D. Vance, a man famous for his pragmatic and tough mindset, is facing a scenario that the Pentagon has never anticipated in its exercises. Iran is not at all flustered by demands for troop withdrawal or nuclear control. On the contrary, they put forward conditions that shock the American side, demanding hundreds of billions of dollars in war reparations and requiring America to completely withdraw from the Middle East in exchange for slightly opening the Strait of Hormuz. Why do they dare to be so arrogant? Simple. While the diplomats are arguing, America's satellite intelligence system has reported back horrifying images. The black market arsenal from Russia, China, and North Korea has been fully assembled and is in the highest combat readiness state. This is exactly the checkmate position that Tehran has painstakingly set up. They have turned the Islamabad negotiating table into a smokescreen to legitimize rearmament. Every hour that passes in Pakistan without an agreement is 1 hour Iran further consolidates the fire serpent formation at sea and the ballistic missile batteries inland. America is caught between two pincers. If they accept Iran's conditions, it will be the most humiliating diplomatic failure in history, directly killing the credibility of the Trump administration. But if they flip the negotiating table to open fire in the second round, America will have to face an Iran many times stronger, an entity that has been blood transfused by the most sophisticated technologies of the Eastern Bloc. Israel, America's closest ally, is restless. In Tel Aviv, Netanyahu understands that every delay at Islamabad is one strand of the life of the Israeli people placed under the barrel of the hypersonic warheads just transferred by North Korea. Mossad has frantically released intelligence information about Iran's secret nuclear underground bunkers in order to force America to take immediate military action. But Washington is still hesitating. Why? Because the price of pressing the button at this moment is too high. A total war with an Iran that has been technically and logistically backed by Russia and China will no longer be a bombing joyride. It will be an attrition war that the American economy, which is already sensitive to energy prices, cannot endure. Iran has read America's hesitation. They know that Donald Trump is very good at negotiation, but he is also an economist. He does not want a prolonged war that collapses the financial market. Taking advantage of this weakness, the Iranian delegation in Islamabad continuously uses the Strait of Hormuz card to bargain. They declare that if negotiations break down, the noose will tighten and the oil flow to the west will be completely cut off. This is no longer negotiation. This is open blackmail at the national level. America's superior position is being eroded by its own previous overconfidence. They thought that the February airstrikes had broken Tehran's will, but they forgot one thing. The will of the IRGC and the Islamic Ayatollahs is not easily subdued by bombs, especially when they have big friends standing behind them. Russia has publicly declared that it will not stand by and watch its ally be destroyed, and Moscow's warships are lingering offshore as a physical barrier if America wants to intervene more deeply. One side is America, trying to maintain the old world order with threats, and the other side is the new alliance, using black market military power to establish a new order in the Middle East. At Islamabad, one sees the Iranian delegation members still calmly praying and drinking tea during tense sessions, while American advisors constantly have to call back to the White House for instructions. Who is really in control of the game? The formation has been laid out. The cards have been flipped face up. America and Israel are standing before the threshold of death. If negotiations reach an agreement, it will be an artificial peace. a rest for Iran to wait for a more ripe moment. But if negotiations fail, the sound of gunfire at Islamabad will be the signal for thousands of black market missiles to simultaneously leave their launchers. This is no longer a hypothetical scenario. The truth is that Iran is ready for a total war. They have nothing left to lose. And when someone who has nothing left to lose holds in their hands the deadliest toys from Russia, China, and North Korea, that is when those in the superior position like America must start feeling fear. Part 5. Iran's Mettle. The Invisible Formation and the Impotence of Mossad. Do not listen to the boastful words about monitoring every centimeter or the far-fetched operational plans from Tel Aviv. Those are only statements to calm public opinion from those who are beginning to feel the heat from the opponent's gun barrel. What is the truth? While Mossad is busy chasing ghosts, Iran has completed an invisible formation that turns the entire territory into an absolute blind zone for Western reconnaissance system. When the hunter can no longer see the prey, that is exactly when the prey has become the butcher. Do you know why shipments from Russia, China, and North Korea can seep into Iran's soil so smoothly amid the thick sanction encirclement? The answer lies in plasma stealth technology and high-power active jamming devices that Moscow and Beijing have just secretly transferred. These shipments do not move in the usual way. They are wrapped in an electromagnetic membrane that makes every long-range radar and Israel's optical satellites only see endless empty spaces. When the opponent thinks they have a grip on Tehran's arsenal, in reality, they are only looking at fake coordinates. Sophisticated decoy targets have been set up to lure the opponent into a useless waste of forces. This is not luck. This is the mettle of an empire that has known how to master top technology to subdue superpower dominance. Iran's superior position lies in its powerful silence. They do not need to strain to show off strength in the newspapers to seek recognition. The mettle of the Iranians is stubbornness and the ability to hide real strength until the very last minute. While America and Israel are flustered with inaccurate intelligence reports at the Islamabad negotiating table, military experts from Pyongyang have quietly completed the synchronization of the guidance systems for the fire salvo batteries. Every missile now is protected by a digital armor layer that no Western cracking software can penetrate. Try confronting a steel storm with no radar signal, no thermal trace, and controlled by electronic brains that do not know the concept of error margin. Look at reality. Once Israel dares to act unilaterally, they will realize they are running into an invisible steel wall. Every airstrike effort will become meaningless when the real targets have been moved deep into the limestone mountain ranges, where even the strongest bunker-buster bombs of the Pentagon are only like scratching an itch before the solidity of nature and Iran's engineering. Iran has prepared a giant trap where they not only defend purely but are ready to carry out a counterattack, wiping out all opposing military bases within thousands of miles as soon as the first shot is fired. At that time, the flashy F-35s of the Western guys will fly into a sky with no coordinates, no targets, only death waiting from the invisible air defense systems optimized by Russia, specifically for this battlefield. Washington and Tel Aviv are playing a card game where they do not even know that the deck has already been swapped by Iran beforehand. Iran's mettle does not allow them to submit to superpower pressure or empty threats. At Islamabad, the Iranian delegation still calmly drinks tea because they know clearly that beneath that desert sand is a power strong enough to change the world order. When the Eastern friends have equipped Tehran with an electronic brain and steel muscle that cannot be penetrated, then all of Israel's calculations at this moment are only the far-fetched illusions of an era of hegemony that has receded into the past. Iran's preparation has reached a level of perfection that American intelligence has never dared to imagine. They do not only hide weapons, they hide an entire total strategy. Every move of the U.S. Fifth Fleet is in the palm of the IRGC command, thanks to the military satellite network supported by partners. Iran sees everything while America and Israel are completely blind. That is exactly the difference between one who holds real power and one who only has the soulless shell of a superpower. The current silence is not weakness. It is the preparation of a firestorm. Iran is sending a silent but steel-hard message. Every prying look will be punished. Every violation will receive destruction. When the invisible formation has been laid out, every effort by the West to turn the situation around only digs the hole they are making for themselves deeper. They are facing a people who not only have iron will, but also hold in their hands the deadliest essences of humanity. The formation has been fully laid out. The invisible pieces are in position. Now, the question is not how Israel will strike, but how they will survive when the fire serpent really spews fire from the underground bunkers they have never seen on satellite maps. The justice of the strong is preparing to be executed, And this time the one holding the scales is Tehran. Part 6. The mortal point Hormuz and the counter-punishment. You look at that narrow strait only a few dozen nautical miles wide. It is not just a simple shipping route. It is the throat of the entire Western economy. The blood vessel nourishing the hegemonic illusion of America and its allies. And right at this moment, Tehran's steel-clad hand is tightening it with ruthless calculation. While politicians in Washington are still busy arguing about aid packages or empty diplomatic clauses at Islamabad, Iran has turned the Strait of Hormuz into a deadly noose that cannot be untied. With the black market equipment just installed and synchronized, this is no longer an empty threat on paper. This is a classic counter-punishment, where the long-sanctioned party now turns around to strangle the very one who created the rules of the game. Do not think that America can bring its giant aircraft carrier fleet here to clear the way as easily as in the time when they still made rain and wind in the Middle East. Thanks to the superior technology infusion from the Eastern Bloc, Iran has turned Hormuz into a maze of new-generation magnetic sensor smart mines and unmanned underwater vehicles carrying penetrating warheads. Just one button press from the IRGC Supreme Command, and the entire world energy flow will stop instantly. The Western guy may own the dollar, own infinite money printing technology, but they cannot pour money into the gas tank to run machines or heat Western cities in the coming winter. When the energy tap is locked by Iran, all financial indices on Wall Street will only be meaningless numbers dancing on the corpse of the American economy, exhausted by inflation and public debt. Therefore, Tehran's superior position is shown in the ruthlessness and precision in choosing the opponent's mortal point to strike. They do not need to send troops all the way to Washington to decide victory or defeat. They only need to make the life of every American citizen, every voter of Donald Trump, become expensive and miserable, to the point of unbearable. This is exactly the most brutal counter-punishment that a cornered nation can unleash. America uses the SWIFT system to block Iran's money flow. Then Iran uses Hormuz to block the West's blood flow. A straightforward, direct, and full of metal response from a regional power that has thoroughly understood the opponent's core weakness. America blocks our financial system. We block Washington's breath. That is the new rule of the game in the Middle East. 2026. Every diplomatic effort by JD at Islamabad is in reality only desperate efforts to beg Iran to loosen this noose before the American economy completely collapses. But Tehran will not easily let go when they hold in their hands life and death cards strong enough to reshape the world order. Every shipment of hypersonic missile components arriving from the black market, every long-range Russian radar complex activated along the coast is one more turn tightening the noose for sure. Iran is proving to the world a blunt truth. In a multipolar world order, the authority of the global policeman no longer has value before those who dare to play an all-in gamble and possess enough technology to do it in the most brutal way. The illusion of the West's total control over the Middle East is being buried right at the mortal point Hormuz. America and Israel may own a giant media machine to distort the truth, but Iran owns the real energy valve. And in this real combat game full of blood and fire, the one who holds real resources and dares to use them is the one who has the right to give orders at the negotiating table. Washington's symbols of power are trembling before the reality that if the second round breaks out, not only will the U.S. military suffer losses in manpower and equipment, but their entire economic and financial structure will be collapsed within just a few weeks by the oil fever and the global supply chain disruption. The geopolitical map is being redrawn by this very oil valve. Iran no longer plays the role of the poor bullied one. They have become the one who sets the rules of the game, the one who holds the fate of Western financial markets. The meaninglessness of the sanctions orders over many decades is now turning back to burn the very ones who created them. When you use economic power to oppress a people, prepare yourselves to receive the boomerang blow from the very source of life you depend on. But will Donald Trump, with the ego of someone who never accepts defeat, let America's throat be squeezed like this forever? Or will Washington unleash a reckless strike, a final gamble to break this deadlock even at the cost of a localized nuclear war? The situation is reaching the most suffocating moments when the ceasefire is about to expire and the B-2 ghosts begin to appear on radar skies. Part 7. Signals from the White House, the deadlock of a superpower and the desperate gamble. Look straight at the chaos happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to see that absolute power is only an illusion when it has to confront an entity that has prepared itself for doomsday. This is no longer the image of a superpower issuing orders to the world. But the signals coming from the White House at this moment are not the roar of victory, but the extreme deadlock of an empire trembling before an invisible formation that they have no way to resolve. Donald Trump, the giant of deals, is now realizing that his trump cards have been completely neutralized by Iran and the Eastern Bloc right before they could be flipped face up. How does Washington plan to strike first when the B-2 Spirit aircraft, the most expensive Iron Birds on the planet and the pride of the Pentagon, have just taken off and fallen into a horrifying information chaos zone? The layered electronic warfare network that Russia and China have just handed over to Tehran has turned the entire Middle East sky into a digital steel wall. American intelligence is falling into a real nightmare. They see Iran's missile bunkers on old maps, but on the current ground, everything is just a blank white zone on radar. The spy satellites worth billions of dollars of the USA now are only blind eyes before the plasma stealth technology covering the ghost bases of the IRGC. Iran's superior position is clearly shown through the confusion to the point of panic of the generals at the Pentagon. Trump wants to press the button. He wants a lightning strike to regain honor for America, but his hand is freezing before the reports of irreparable damage. Military advisors are having to restrain the president with extreme fear. They understand that as soon as one American bomb falls on Iranian territory, the Hormuz noose will immediately tighten to the point where there is not a drop of oxygen left for the Western economy. America is caught between two pincers: a military war they are not sure of winning, and an economic collapse that will definitely happen if Iran carries out the counterpunishment. Do you see this tragedy? The so-called readiness for a preemptive strike is in reality only a weak psychological warfare drama by Washington to salvage some of the lost position at the Islamabad negotiating table. But when the opponent of the Western guy is an Iran equipped with China's brain, Russia's muscle, and North Korea's suicidal will, then Trump's threats only sound like the cry of a paper tiger in the middle of a firestorm. The bitter truth is that every second that passes at Islamabad without an agreement is 1 second the North Korean experts in Tehran complete the final miniaturized nuclear warheads, while America is still struggling to find a way to restore the satellite signals that have been brutally knocked out. The combat writing style of wider meaning does not allow us to use flowery words to cover up the truth. America is losing on every front, from diplomacy to military technology. The silent but powerful presence of the Eastern Bloc behind Iran has created a new geopolitical reality that Trump does not have enough capital to break. The preemptive gamble is now no longer a wise tactical choice. It has become a collective suicide act. When the strong no longer have the right to command with firepower, they only have the way to use the media to cover up their own impotence. Trump understands that if he orders to open fire, that will be the shot that ends the superpower throne that America has occupied for so many years. The signal from the White House at this moment is the signal of the end of an era. The era in which America could unilaterally redraw the world map with gun barrels has been buried by the mettle of the Iranian people and the thunderous support from the East. This second round, if it really breaks out, will not be a demonstration of American technological weapons, but will be the funeral for Washington's hegemonic illusion. Iran has won at the strategic level by forcing a superpower to stand still in impotence, watching its opponent rearm right before its eyes. Every road from Washington now leads to a dead end, while every path from Tehran is opening to a new world order where Americans are no longer the driver. This match has been decided before the first shot is fired. Trump's silence at this moment is the most eloquent proof of Iran's superior position. When the hunter suddenly realizes he is within the sights of tens of thousands of invisible gun barrels, arrogance will give way to cowardly survival instinct. Washington is counting down every hour in despair, hoping for a diplomatic miracle to escape the heavenly net trap they have unwittingly stepped into. But for Iran, the time for empty promises has ended. The second round will begin the way Tehran wants, not the way America dictates. We do not stand here to dream of a far-fetched peace on scraps of paper. We stand here to look straight into the gun barrel and witness the collapse of an old order, the disintegration of the hegemonic illusions that have existed for half a century. The U.S.-Israel-Iran confrontation in 2026 is no longer a small regional conflict. It is the command shot, the great turning point that reshapes the position of all humanity in the 21st century. The ruler in Washington is betting the nation's destiny on preemptive strikes, while the minds in Tehran are betting the honor of a rising empire on the invisible fire serpent formation. After the smoke of the second round's gunfire dissipates, no matter who wins or loses on the military front, there is one irreversible truth. The unipolar world has died, because America's sole dominant superior position has been cracked beyond repair by the black market shipments carrying technological essences from Russia, China, and North Korea. When a besieged nation like Iran can make an entire aircraft carrier fleet hesitate, When the mortal point Hormuz becomes the noose tightening the Western financial system, that is also when the global rules of the game have changed forever. Power now no longer lies in the hands of the one with the most money, or the one who speaks the loudest, but in the hands of the one who dares to act in real combat and possesses cutting-edge technologies strong enough to break every sanction barrière. Look at the ruins of the hegemonic symbols to see that the meaninglessness of superpower always has to be paid for with painful collapse. Iran has proven that with metal and strategic backing from the Eastern Bloc, they not only survive, but are strong enough to establish a new power pole in the Middle East. America and Israel may own global media to paint victories, but the real ground does not lie. The fiery bomb craters, the blind radar batteries, and the aircraft carriers that have to retreat far from shore are the most honest reports about the change in the geopolitical chessboard. A multipolar order where power is shared and counterweights are forming right on these fiery lands. This life-and-death game has taught the world an expensive lesson about real combat. Never corner a people with will and technology unless you are ready to accept equivalent destruction. Washington may still keep the empty title of superpower, but the authority of the global policeman has been buried under the Gulf's sand and dust. Meanwhile, the Eastern Alliance has sent a steel-hard message. The era in which the West could arbitrarily redraw the world map with bombs and sanction orders has ended. Iran today is the premise for the next uprisings of nations that refuse imposition to seek true autonomy. Dear friends, we do not stand here to forecast a far-fetched peace. We stand here to see the collapse of the old and the brutal rise of the new. The US-Israel-Iran game in 2026 is no longer a regional conflict. It is the war that reshapes the position of all humanity. The ruler in Washington is betting the nation's destiny, while the Ayatollahs in Tehran are betting the honor of an empire. After this second round, no matter who wins or loses, the world order will never return to the old. Therefore, America's superior position has been cracked by the black market shipments from Russia, China, and North Korea, and Iran's power has been proven through the full-of-metal invisible formation. Wider meaning will continue to accompany you, exposing the rawest truths from the battlefield, where cold steel and will are the only language recognized. Do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss the moment the second round opens fire.